given that, we used to take so many things for granted, and especially I definitely, went through that reflection mode for a while. To have a roof over your head, to be able to have good health, family's good health, food on the plate, friends and family who are healthy. I think those small little things have been so important, and being able to be connected virtually with people. Otherwise, oh my god, it would have been so tough, right? And another personal aspect is I mean, at my work really had me traveling a lot. I used to travel almost 15 days a month. And being a corporate responsibility leader, a sustainability leader, has to always feel like, oh my god, with all of this travel, I am adding so much carbon footprint. I mean, it's a professional hazard. You can't help it, right? Because I mean, I lead a team which is all across Asia, and then our headquarters is in the US. So I had to travel. I had just no other option. But this few months that I have been at home and working virtually, it has also given me one that chance to also realize that that efficient use of technology can really go a long way. I think that's been a big learning for a lot of us, and a lot of organizations as well. From an organizational standpoint, we have had this learning that one can be efficient. For people like us, obviously, we would like to be on the ground, and I'm sure Mr. Ojha can really speak to that a lot more, because we are used to having conversations with farmers and people on the ground and meeting community in person, which has largely not happened in obviously the past few months. But the pro of this is that I think we have not been able to, because we've not been able to travel, we have definitely led to that way, probably creating a slightly better environment.
Planet Earth. Yeah, absolutely. That's what we were essentially talking about. I think Mr. Patania and Mr. Roja kind of echoed the view that we need to be kinder towards the planet and towards everyone who shares it with us, every form of life. Ms. Devanshi, I think, is still struggling with her internet. So we are yet to know what her quarantine learning has been. But my team has given me a cue that we are now live on all streaming platforms with more than 80 people watching us live at the moment. So I think I should take this minute to start off the conversation formally. And we can get to our quarantine learnings and the other things at the end. So first of all, thank you very much, all of you, for joining us today. My name is Tanya Tikku, and I'm the editor-in-chief and co-founder of ObserveNow, India's first general knowledge app, live on Google Play. And today I've curated a very special CSR virtual leadership panel where I want to talk about exactly everything that has been working out wrong for our planet. Today I've curated the CSR panel so that I want to know how CSR leaders can devise a strategic function for corporates to be more sustainable, how CSR leaders can work in tandem with various NGOs who are supporting and trying to create a better earth, and of course, the big C of the world right now, climate change, and the plan of action that is required here. And I have a very specific set of panelists as well. Please allow me in welcoming my panelists here today. Ms. Devanshi Dwivedi, CSR lead at MGB. Hi, Ms. Devanshi. Mr. Rishi Patania, head CSR at UPL. Hi, sir. Ms. Dipanvita Chakraborty, Regional Director and CSR Development Asia Pacific for Cargill. Hi,
Hi, everybody.
And Mr. Vignesh Ojha, VP at Shree Nandishala. Hi, sir.
Hello, everyone.
So, as I briefed all the panelists here, today the idea is to get one person from a ground zero point of view, running an NGO, in front of the CSR leaders as to figure out what is it, what is that breaking point, what is that tipping point that we are going wrong about, and why can't we all work in tandem towards creating a better environment, which is, I think, the need of the hour. And Mr. Roja, I must compliment you for the kind of work that you've shown me and what has prompted me to invite you as a guest on my show as well. And quickly, I want to place it in front of our CSR leaders here and my audiences as well, because their work is very different and very few people in India that I know of are doing this. So please allow me a minute to share my screen before we quickly begin the discussion. Are you all able to see?
Mm-hmm.
जब हर घर और कस्बों में गायें होती थी और गोपालन को महत्व दिया जाता था। लेकिन शहरीकरण ने धीरे धीरे कस्बों से गायों को एवं यांत्रिक खेती ने बैलों को किसानों से दूर कर दिया है। आज के समय में लोगों को जब तक गौवंश से लाभ मिलता है तब तक ही उनकी सेवा करते हैं और बाद में उन्हें बेघर कर देते हैं ताकि उनकी देखभाल न करनी पड़े। आधुनिकता के इस दौर में माता का दर्जा प्राप्त करने वाली गायों को आज हम लोग भुलाते जा रहे हैं। आज नंदियों की हालत और भी बुरी है। ये सड़कों पर बेसहारा घूमने और प्लास्टिक व कचरे खाने को मजबूर है। सड़कों पर घूमने से काफी दुर्घटनाएं भी होती हैं, जिससे आमजन के साथ साथ इनकी जान को भी खतरा रहता है। वहीं ये बुचड़ खाने के भी शिकार बन जाते हैं। आज गौवंश की हालत इस देश में बहुत खराब है। आज देश में कई गौशालाएं चलाई जा रही हैं, पर ज्यादातर गौशालाएं दूध बेचकर पैसे कमाते हैं। परंतु आज भी समाज में ऐसे लोग हैं जो निरंतर अपनी संस्कृति को बचाने का प्रयास कर रहे हैं, साथ ही उन्हें आने वाली पीढ़ियों के लिए संजो के रखने का काम भी कर रहे हैं। ऐसी ही एक गौशाला का नाम है श्री नंदीशाला। श्री नंदीशाला श्री सोहन लाल जी बुला देवी जी ओझा गौशाला समिति द्वारा संचालित है, जो राजस्थान में बीकानेर जिले के गाढ़वाला में स्थित है, जिसे श्री अनिल कुमार ओझा जी के द्वारा चलाया जा रहा है, जो कई सालों से गौवंश की सेवा करते आ रहे हैं। यह गौशाला अन्य गौशालाओं से बिल्कुल अलग है। यहाँ पर दुधारू गायों की संख्या न के बराबर है और नंदियों की संख्या ज्यादा है, इसलिए इसका नाम श्री नंदीशाला है। श्री नंदीशाला 100 बीघा से अधिक जगह में फैला हुआ है और यहाँ गौवंश की संख्या 7,000 से अधिक है, जिसमें निराश्रित नंदी की संख्या 5,000 से ज्यादा है। भारतवर्ष में नंदीशाला होना एक शोभित कर्म है और सबसे भव्य नंदीशाला होने का सौभाग्य सिर्फ श्री नंदीशाला को प्राप्त है, जहां 5,000 नंदियों की सेवा का कार्य 8 पहर होता है। वहीं मरुधर प्रदेश में नंदीशाला चलाना अपने आप में एक बड़ी चुनौती है, लेकिन गौवंश की सेवा भाव से इस भूमि में नंदीशाला खोलना एक सराहनीय कदम है। श्री नंदीशाला द्वारा नंदी और गायों को बेहतरीन तौर तरीके से रखने के लिए सभी सुविधाएं और उच्चतम मापदंडों को अपनाया जाता है। प्रशासन ने श्री नंदीशाला के गौवंश सुविधा के प्रति किए जा रहे कार्यों की काफी सराहना भी की है। श्री नंदीशाला में लगभग 250 से ज्यादा कर्मचारी हैं, जो 6,000 से ज्यादा गौवंश की सेवा कर रहे हैं। श्री नंदीशाला ने अपने अथक परिश्रम से नंदियों और गायों के रहने की व्यवस्था के लिए भव्य नंदीशाला का निर्माण किया। साथ साथ श्री नंदीशाला द्वारा खेती कर गौवंश के लिए हरा चारा और गेहूं भी उगाया जा रहा है। आज श्री नंदीशाला काफी हरी भरी है, इसी कारण आसपास का वातावरण भी काफी बेहतर हो गया है। श्री नंदीशाला परिसर के अंदर ही गौवंश के लिए हर तरह की जरूरी चीजें मौजूद हैं। गौवंश को जो हरा चारा देना होता है वो कैंपस के अंदर ही उगाया जाता है, जो पूरी तरह से ऑर्गेनिक होता है, जिसे विशेषज्ञों की देखरेख में श्री नंदीशाला की 1/3 से ज्यादा जमीन पर उपजाया जाता है। वहीं सूखे चारे के भंडारण के लिए 2 विशाल भंडार घर भी श्री नंदीशाला में बनाए गए हैं, ताकि इनके खाने का स्टॉक एक जगह जमा किया जा सके। प्रतिदिन लगभग 500 क्विंटल से ज्यादा चारा गौवंश के स्वास्थ्य और पाचन शक्ति को ध्यान में रखते हुए हमारे अनुभवी डॉक्टरों के निर्देशानुसार दिया जाता है, जिसमें गेहूं का दलिया भी शामिल है। गौवंश की स्वास्थ्य सुविधा के लिए भी नंदीशाला में एक चिकित्सालय और अस्पताल भी है, जहां पर 24 घंटे डॉक्टर की एक टीम मौजूद रहती है ताकि उचित समय पर नंदियों और गायों को इलाज मिल सके। ये समय समय पर सभी नंदी और गायों का निरीक्षण करते रहते हैं ताकि इन्हें बीमारियों से बचाया जा सके और स्वस्थ रखा जा सके। चिकित्सालय में जरूरी दवाइयां, इंजेक्शन व अन्य आपातकालीन सामान हर समय पर्याप्त मात्रा में रहता है। श्री नंदीशाला में गौवंश के लिए एक आईसीयू यूनिट भी है, जहां ज्यादा बीमार गौवंश की विशेष देखभाल भी की जाती है। यह आईसीयू यूनिट घायल और फ्रैक्चर केस का इलाज करने में भी सक्षम है। श्री नंदीशाला में गौवंश की स्वच्छता पर भी विशेष ध्यान दिया जाता है। नंदीशाला को स्वच्छ रखने के लिए प्रतिदिन यहाँ के गौवंश और श्री नंदीशाला परिसर की सफाई दिन में 2 बार की जाती है ताकि यहाँ के माहौल में स्वच्छता बनी रहे। ये कार्य वाकई श्री नंदीशाला को एक अन्य गौशालाओं से भिन्न बनाता है। इसके पीछे का उद्देश्य है कि कई बार गंदगी के कारण महामारी फैलने का डर रहता है। श्री नंदीशाला ने स्वच्छता पर काफी जोर दिया है। यही वजह है कि इतनी अधिक गौवंश की संख्या के बावजूद यहाँ गंदगी व दुर्गंध का नामो निशान नहीं है। इतनी मात्रा में गौवंश होने के कारण श्री नंदीशाला में गोबर काफी मात्रा में एकत्रित होता है, जिसे ऑर्गेनिक खाद बनाकर श्री नंदीशाला परिसर के खेत में गौवंश के हरे चारे के लिए इस्तेमाल किया जाता है। श्री नंदीशाला के द्वारा एक अनोखी शुरुआत की गई है, जिसमें वह अपने आसपास के गांवों के किसानों को बुलाकर उन्हें ऑर्गेनिक खाद एवं गौमूत्र वितरित करते हैं ताकि इसका इस्तेमाल कर वे भी ऑर्गेनिक फसल उगा सके। श्री नंदीशाला में गौवंश की सेवा के लिए आधुनिक और हर बेहतर मापदंडों को अपनाया जा रहा है, जिससे गौवंश की सेवा निस्वार्थ भाव से की जा सके। ये निस्वार्थ भाव का उदाहरण ही है कि जिन गौवंश को लोगों ने ठुकरा दिया, उन गौवंश को उच्च स्तरीय हर जरूरी सुविधाएं श्री नंदीशाला द्वारा प्राप्त हो रही हैं। श्री नंदीशाला का आप सबसे अनुरोध है कि एक बार आप सपरिवार पधारें और अपने विचार हमारे साथ साझा करें ताकि हम अपनी सेवा के स्तर को और उच्च कर सकें, क्योंकि यह सिर्फ हमारी नंदीशाला नहीं है, यह है आप सबकी अपनी श्री नंदीशाला। धन्यवाद।
So that's some groundbreaking work that you're doing, Mr. Roja. I will come back to you, but thank you very much for sharing that with us. It really did indeed give us a perspective on caring for the environment and caring for animal, and caring for cattle is also a thing that definitely puts it in perspective. But let me move on to my other panelists here. And can I move on to you, Mr. Rishi, first? And can I have your opening statements on how you as a CSR leader or CSR leaders in general can focus on more issues of sustainabilities, and what kind of plans your respective organizations CSR plans your respective organizations are also having at this point in time, and what are the plans of actions that are required for us to create a better planet Earth?
Thank you so much, Tanya. And wonderful work, Mr. Roja. Let me congratulate you for the wonderful work that you're doing on. See, as an organization, I think it's very important for all of us to remain focused around the nature conservation work. Why I'm saying this, if you do a complete scan of the work that's happening under CSR in country, you will not find a big percentage of corporates focusing on nature conservation, or maybe focusing on environment as a whole.
Yeah,
I'm sure they must be having their own work related to sustainability and environment conservation, but I'm talking about individual CSR per se.
and so why is that, if I may?
And precisely that's the reason I thought I'll initiate this discussion, because I think it's a long-term investment. That's one reason. Second, there's not much awareness. The awareness is more around education or other aspects of the development, which I'm not saying are not important. They are also important. But I think it's also important that as a corporate leader, we start taking this issue head on and start working on it. One thing is for sure, this is not an initiative which will give you a result in a quarter or year or 3 years. This is a long-term initiative. Any nature conservation initiative, it's a very long-term initiative. Even we talk about Nandishala, I'm sure the video that we are seeing is an effort of maybe 20, 30, 40 years. So that's a kind of an investment of time and money that's needed. So that's a precisely reason to my understanding that not many are taking up. Why is it needed? I think in 2007, we have crossed that threshold limit where I think we have started using 1.5 times of ecological services from Mother Earth. So it's a high time that we start thinking about and giving back to the community and to the Mother Earth. At UPL, we have taken up a big initiative called UPL Vasudha. Vasudha, as you all know, it's Mother Earth, giver of wealth to us. And we have different initiatives under Vasudha. Like we are working on species conservation. Saras is a species that we have adopted, and we are working on conservation of Saras. We are working on community on creating community forests through partnership with Gram Panchayats. And when I'm saying forest, it's not a plantation project where you go and do some kind of plantation. We work on end-to-end forestry project where we take up land, and there's a complete fencing and there is a water arrangement, and it's a 5-year project, and then we hand over to the community after creating a forest in that area. We are working on mango plantation around coastal lines. We are working on creating awareness in kids, in school children. So we have started forming eco clubs. We're working with 100 government schools where we have formed eco clubs. So this is a broad spectrum of work that
entail. What exactly is it that you're teaching young children about the environment, because they are growing up in a completely different space than what we grew up in. So how do you get an idea across to them?
So the way we work is, the first step is bringing them together by way of eco club, where we sensitize them about the local flora and fauna. That's the first step for us, because kids of present generation, they need to understand what is around them. So we are not going at a very higher level and teaching them around what's happening around the world. We're taking one step at a time. So the first step is educating them about the flora and fauna around their communities and what we have lost in 20-25 years. So that's how our journey starts. And then we go into next step, how we can preserve, how they can create their own biodiversity in their own school, in their villages, different initiative under nature conservation. And as I said, like any nature conservation initiative, this is a long-term investment. Even in our eco club, it took us almost 3 years to come to a certain level where we were able to communicate and understand each other and do the way we really wanted to do. So it's very important. And my submission is more and more corporates need to take up nature conservation as an important initiative under their umbrella of sustainability and CSR. I think then only we'll be able to create small role models or small examples which can be replicated at larger level. So that's my opening remark to start with.
Yeah, and I quite agree with you right there. I think this initiative where you're reaching out to young children, I think that's the most important thing. They are the future of the planet, and they need to be educated about environmental studies, and they need to be educated about biodiversity in a completely different way. And I think the best idea at this point in time is to focus on local communities and then eventually move them on. And if they'll start it at a very young age, I think that's really good. But thank you very much. I will come back to you. Can I move on to you, Ms. Dipandita? And can I have your opening statements, please?
Sure. Thank you. Great points, Mr. Pathania, and I'm going to build on what you just mentioned. See, I think we as a generation, we have this big task of feeding a planet of 7 billion people, right? And of that, about 1.3 billion are in our country. It's not an easy thing, right? And look at how food is kind of at the center of every conversation that we're doing, and the impact that climate change has on it, and vice versa, right? So how do you grow food safely? How do you grow food responsibly? How do you grow food sustainably? How do you make it available to the right people who need it? How do you create that access? How do you create how do you cater to the demand? And this is an extremely complex food system conversation to have. There are the market dynamics that are obviously happening around the world, and then there are very, very local, hyper local actually issues that we face around food, that are so imminent. And the reason I brought up food is because we alluded to the fact that as a country or as corporations, as individuals, we have not been speaking about sustainability explicitly. Like, every night when 120 million people in our country are going to bed without a meal, we always have said that, okay, we have a larger problem at hand that we need to look at. But then, this has come to really, it has come to hit us on our face. We do not have an option anymore where we can say that, we will deal with climate change later and first deal with, the food accessibility, availability, etc. Now we have realized, we have come to a point where we have to understand that we have to have it going hand in hand. And I work for a food and agriculture organization. We have 156 years of history behind us of being able to move food from, very complex supply chains, from a place of surplus to a place of deficit, right? So the complexity of how a farmer, how a dealer, how the consumer, how we as an organization who works as a conduit has to really bring it all together and make it happen, has been an evolution curve that we have also seen happening. And now we are at an inflection point where we know that we have to really take some bold steps, like every other organization is thinking about it. So therefore, I just want to allude to the fact that sustainability is no longer a conversation that CSR leaders can only have or a CSR team can have. It is a boardroom conversation. Sustainability is not restricted to what we...
About it. Sorry? But do you get the chance to speak to your leadership team?
Yes. It is part of. I mean, that's what it's been a journey. It's been an evolution curve, right? And again, we work across 70 countries across the world, and if I have to look at that spectrum as well, I have to say that every country has a different evolution curve. Some countries are right up there. I mean, if you look at Europe or if you look at North America, they talk about sustainability in a very different way, as opposed to how we talk about it in Asia. So the lens is slightly different because we are all trying to catch up with, and also being very, very grounded on what are some of the very, very local, hyper local issues that we have to first deal with. But that does not mean that, we do not have the conversation. We do have it. So I think few things, obviously this has to be part of the boardroom conversation. We have to have a seat on the table when it comes to making that decision. It is not only about sustainability with what we do with the communities. It is about sustainable production, sustainable consumption. So it has to be part of our business planning as well as we talk about it in the boardroom, right? Because otherwise it ain't happening. I mean, we can't just go and do some community initiatives and say that, yeah, my sustainability is done. No, it is not going to happen. How are we looking at plastic usage? I'll just give an example. So 2 to 3 years back, we realized that, when very small example within our corporate office here in India, how we have conferences inside the office, our own internal meetings, or we have some, external meetings. What would we do? We would serve people water in those small little PET bottles, the mineral water bottles, right? And then we were realizing, we said, okay, let us do an audit to figure out what is the kind of plastic usage that it is, that is happening in our office premises. And, it really threw up some alarming figures, and we switched. We did away with all of the plastic bottles, and we said we introduced those flasks so when we have visitors and we have these conferences or meetings, now people just have to pour water in the glass, and there is, so like I said, it's a very, very small, minute measure, but the impact in the long term can be huge. And I'm really happy to see now, now obviously there are no conferences happening in the hotels, but then a lot of hotels have also switched to that practice where they are no longer serving water bottles.
Yeah, absolutely. And Dipanwita, I think one thing that you said was that you at Kargil are also planning some bold steps to take on this issue. Could you maybe put some light on that? What is it, the kind of steps that we require? I think your peers could learn a few things and are, attention.
Sure, absolutely. So, when we look at, there are a few areas, right? So how do we do climate smart agriculture practices?
Right.
Now, Cargill deals in very complex supply chains, in terms of the commodities, cocoa, palm, and then copra, soy, and so many such. And this is, I'm talking a little global. Please pardon me for doing that, because I really believe that we have to be globally consistent, locally relevant kind of a way, because everything is impacting each other. We can't really say that what we do in India is just here, and what we do in Brazil is not impacting us. We can't say that anymore.
Yeah, okay.
So we have taken those bold steps in terms of our deforestation policies, for example, right? We have set very strong water targets, or we have set climate targets in terms of our emissions. So that's why I said that it's very important that you have your businesses on board.
Absolutely.
We cannot set water targets as CSR leaders for the company, right? We cannot set emission targets for the company as CSR leaders. It has to be in partnership with the business, and therefore it has to be a business conversation. And that's why it's important. I think we as professionals, we play a very big role as a catalyst, as an activist, as some people who also are great advocates, from getting the outside in, from what's happening in the world, back to the business and show them the mirror, and also take it back to the world, like partners, NGOs, civil society organization, policymakers, to say that, okay, this is how we feel we can sort of make a difference, and then set those bold targets together. I don't think it can be done in isolation. And I think Mr. Patani had also alluded to this conversation about partnerships. I think that's the key. You have to partner with communities, you have to partner with farmers in our case, you have to partner with the policymakers, you have to partner with the civil society organizations, and you have to have your employees as a big set of your ambassadors who actually believe in what you're doing.
Absolutely. I think a good takeaway from here, Ms. Dipanvita, is the key of partnerships. I think it has to come right from the board level to your employee, and it has to pan out in 360 degrees. You've got to get everybody on board. So I think that's a good starting point. And also, we could build on this in our second round of questions, where we will talk about how and why these partnerships are failing, because we're definitely not seeing the right results. But I will get back to all of you with that. But in the meantime, I want to move on to Ms. Devanshi, and I think the context is pretty much set, so we're just waiting for your statements and your thoughts. You're on mute.
Okay. So we at MGB, lead the CSR and Sustainability Advisory. So we actually advise clients related to CSR and sustainability. So what we're discussing over here has two aspects. One, sustainability, right? So when we talk about sustainability in CSR projects, what we usually tend to advise our clients on is, whichever area the company, our client is taking their CSR project in, whether it's education, whether it's health, whether it's water or sanitation, we try and advise them to get environment sustainability also as a part of it. Point in case, one of our clients is doing a project on menstrual hygiene and awareness in rural areas. So we go to these tribal schools and, we spread awareness and we distribute sanitary pads. So we ensure that the sanitary pads are organic, recyclable. We ensure, that we do not distribute them in plastic bags. We ensure that they distribute in paper bags. And the most important point that we cover in our awareness sessions is, disposal of the sanitary pads. So my point is, that whatever CSR project the corporate is taking up, they need to ensure that there is environment sustainability, looking into health, or, if you're doing a water project, it does not. So for example, providing RO plants in schools. So water coolers in schools. So, we advise our clients to also start a small kitchen garden just right now. Is, whatever water is wasted while the children, drink or wash their hands, whatever water is wasted is actually utilized in the small kitchen gardens. So try and make environment a part of any kind of CSR projects that the corporates are taking up. Second is sustainability for the business as whole. I think the steps that we usually advise our clients, and very rightly what Dipanvita said is, sustainability in businesses is something which cannot reach to its ultimate goal without the involvement of the board and the senior leadership. That would never be possible. And we have seen this with a lot of our clients where we try and set up processes within the organization which tend to fall off during in a period of time if the board is not involved. So it becomes very important, and it's almost like indispensable that the board has to be a part to make the businesses sustainable. A few steps and a few things that we advise our clients is to do regular monitoring and evaluation and regular audits, social audits, to keep in check how and where do they stand in sustainability. Just like Dipanvita also mentioned, they did a small audit on plastic usage. So it kinds of gives an alarm and helps the businesses understand where is the scope of improvement and how should they go about sustainability.
Absolutely. Maybe we can build on that in a little while, but I want to move on. But thank you very much for sharing your thoughts. Mr. Roja, I want to move on to you. And you've heard all the CSR leaders here. And I think one common thing that I kind of got from this first round of questions was that the key here is strategic partnerships at all level. And now you are a person who's working on the ground, you're running an NGO, and so talk to us from that point of view and help me understand what are the biggest challenges that you face in terms of working with CSR leaders, in terms of working with the government, in terms of people complementing and supporting the work that you're doing.
Yes, of course, Tanya. So, running a Nandishala itself is a challenge. And that too in a Rajasthan, which is a desert state, and increase it double-fold, as you have already seen in the video. The weather is very challenging there, plus the other things like water and also which and the number of cattle what we've been taking care of is almost like 5,000 plus. So you can understand the kind of challenge, we've been taking care of. Number two, we don't have any, product to sell and to earn profit. So we are running our Nandishala in a very, very limited revenue, and which majorly goes from our own pocket. Plus, there are certain other things, like there are a lot of unexpected expenses which happen, like we keep providing food to the stray cattle who are not a part of Shree Nandishala. If we get any, you get to know about any accident or doctor team visits there, examine, do the first aid, etc. Our doctor team is very efficient and they can even treat the fracture case as well. But since we don't have any ambulance, we have to hire vehicle and we treat. So the focus is to cure that animal. So cost is something which we always look at. Exactly at the end. So we don't worry about that. As Mr. Pathania has rightly pointed out, the kind of CSR funds which goes to. So almost like 70% of the CSR fund, goes to the NGOs which are human related, like be it into child, women, education, etc. Then the animal protection comes, which again, the majority of fund goes for stray dogs, which is around 20%. So at times the cows, there are the funds which is the remaining 10%, out of which 5% is being used for some other purpose, and the remaining 5% at the end come to us as a cattle. So my only request is, and that too, that 5% again comes in the form of fodder and all. So, but my point is that it is not only about fodder. There are other equal important aspects as well, like the kind of infrastructure which you have seen in the medicine, plus the medicine, which is a very, very important aspect as of now. Like Ms. Chakrabarti has also pointed out in terms of the plastic usage. Now, I'll just give you a very small example. 5 years back, on an average, a stray cow used to have somewhere around 7 to 8 kgs of plastic, which has increased by almost like 50%. Now today, whenever there's a cow or a bull which comes to our premises, on an average, it is like almost between 12 to 15 kgs of plastic which we get to. remove from their body. And the major, till now, the record what we have is around almost like 45 kgs. So medicine actually plays a very, very important role in out there. Plus the kind of staff what we have almost like 100 plus staff, which is taking care of the entire cattle and the entire premises of us. So everything which we have to look, for all the corners, and that is the support what we need. That as a kettle, it is not only about kettle, but there are a lot of other aspects which can be brought into the picture. Like as a country, India used to known as Sone ki Chidiya before independence.
Yeah.
Right. So what was the reason of that? That was only because of the kind of the food, and India is an agricultural land. But the kind of quality what we are getting out in terms of as a output, by using the fertilizers and all, it is completely, the scenario, the cases. In fact, there's a place called Bhitinda. From there's a special train goes to Bikaner, which is known as a cancer train, because the quality of fertilizer, pesticides, the number of cancer cases has actually risen really high. The kind of the quality of food, vegetable, what we are eating or our children are eating is totally, we don't know that whether it's a fruit or a pesticide or anything out there. So we need to look at it in terms, and this is the the overall aspect. Of my request to corporate sector is to to divert some fund in terms of stray cattle, which always comes at the end. When we talk about CSR, cattle is always been taken at the last priority. So I think it's time to reverse that opinion, and it should come at the first point, because there are a lot of benefits which we get from the cattle. And when like the Shree Nandishala, the concept which has been started by our president, Mr. Anil Kumar Oja. So he has a vision towards this, that now, since we are also planning to come up the 5,000 number what we have, we are actually coming up to and increasing it somewhere around 100,000 in numbers, and gradually we are going to touch it somewhere around 500,000. So that is the kind of vision what we are looking forward to. But everything, yes, CSR funds plays a very, very vital role in all this, and we are looking forward from the corporates to help us out in that.
In that sense, absolutely. So maybe what you're trying to suggest here is that there are other aspects of maintaining ecological balance, and
exactly,
to diversify their point of views, they could also help in NGOs such as yourselves and many others who are working in what I would like to call an offbeat sort of sustainability.
True.
Work ahead. Thank you very much for those thoughts. And again, I want to move on to Mr. Pathania, and I want to understand from you quickly. Can you, before we take an audience question as well, so quickly, can you give me an idea? What is it? I think Dipanvita also said this, and the key here is partnerships, and that's what Ms. Devanshi also sort of echoed. So, what is the biggest problem in that sense, where we cannot leverage the best of the partnerships and work for the better of the environment? You're on mute.
I think first I would like to clarify on a statement that Mr. Oja made about fertilizer and pesticide. I think it's wrong to blame without having a scientific and evidence-based data, because I think we'll just look at the figures. I think post 2007, humanity has crossed, as I said earlier also, the requirement is 1.5 of what Earth can give us. In fact, it's a period of human domination over Earth. And we know that it's impacted Earth like anything, because there's a rapid depletion of natural resources, primarily because of human population increase that has happened, and there's a consumption level that has increased because of that. So it's basically what Ms. Chakravarti was saying, it's actually a food security issue that's there. So I think it's not logical to blame on particular thing without that evidence base. That's the first thing. Because I think there's a need to balance between a food security and a nature conservation. That's always going to be there.
Yeah.
There's a continuous requirement of food for 1.3 to 1.4 billion people in our country. So it's actually a food insecurity issue that needs to be addressed on a continuous basis. So that balance has to be there. So everyone is working towards that. Now, coming back to the nature conservation initiative, which I started, and my submission was, it needs to be a kind of a focus approach. And as I said that time also, you really need to have a focus, long-term effort. Any small initiative that you do in nature conservation, it requires a lot of time and effort. So you really need to have that kind of focus. And you need to create a buy-in within the organization also, that you really want to drive this. Now, when I'm saying this, I'm not touching the organization sustainability aspect, which Ms. Chakravarti was talking about. So whether you really want to drive that through your product profile, or whether you work with your customers or your other stakeholders, that part is there. I'm specifically touching only the small aspect of driving this in the community through CSR. And as the data was presented, I think I have a slight difference there. To my understanding, it's less than 2% which goes into the nature conservation and the environment thing. It's CSR space is primarily the prime funding, or the money goes towards education and other issues, and maybe now it will go towards health also. But still, the larger aspect of nature conservation and environment remains there itself. So that needs to be focused on. So that is something that really needs to be on everyone's table and everyone's thought process at present.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Thank you so much, Mr. Rishi, for those thoughts. Ms. Dipanuta, I'm going to move on to you. And I am actually going to take up one of the audience questions for you from Mr. Dharma Rao. And he says, can you develop a community-based seed bank to grow a variety of plantation hybrid agriculture? How are you going to use an NGO for this? Would you like to take?
Yeah, sure. See, I think this is already happening in practice. Thank you for that question. You said Mr. Dharma? Yeah, thank you for that question, Mr. Rao. So I think, one of the things that we do as organizations, and a lot of you would be aware of the farmer producer organizations that exist in the villages, especially, to be able to aggregate farmers and give them better extension services, create a market for them, and it works as an institution to be able to work for the farmers, and this is being created by the farmers. So organizations like ourselves, we have a big opportunity to work with farmer producer organizations. And then we have a civil society organization or an NGO who could work as a conduit, the bridge, right, between a farmer producer organization and a corporate like ours. So the point is, be it seed bank, be it any other agriculture extension services, it could be a farm equipment, right? Or it could be creating a better demand in the market for the products that the farmers in that particular geography are producing, or do intercropping of one staple with a cash crop. There could be multiple avenues and ways that one could really think innovatively to be able to bring in solutions like that. And that has to be, again, customized. So if there is a rain-fed agriculture geography, which is like, for example, like Karnataka, the way you would do agriculture extension services there, or you would partner with the farmer producer organization, as opposed to how you would do it in Orissa, as opposed to how you do it in Andhra, would be very, very different, right? So it is important to first understand the need of the ground. Now, if there is a need for a seed bank in a particular geography, why not? Yes, of course we can do that. But I think one important conversation that we need to have as corporations, as in partnership with civil society organization, policymakers, communities, in this case farmer producer organization, is to first understand the need on the ground and hit it on the nail. On the head of the nail, right? And then create solutions which are, again, something that you'd say, okay, what are we going to do smaller term? What are we going to do midterm? Whatever we're going to do longer term, and then go about it. And I also want to put this point forward for everybody, that as corporations, we do not always have the wherewithal in terms of resources, time, everything, to be able to always think about scale. We would like to, right? But in our capacity, we would definitely like to give back as much as we can. But what we can really do, and I think what we really focus on, and I think Mr. Patania also alluded to it when he was having the conversation, is the fact that we can create models of excellence which can be replicated, which people can learn from. And this kind of conversation that we are having right now, or such forums, can actually be a great platform to be able to share those examples. Or organizations like for example, you, Tanya, could actually bring people together to create a network where people are able to share and maybe collaborate for things which I specialize in something else, UPS specializes in something else. Are there ways that there could be synergies that could be built?
Absolutely.
With attribution models, right? So it needs a conversation. And I again go back to the business model aspect of it. See, what is the business case of CSR? What is the business case of sustainability? If I am putting $1 on the table, if I'm putting an INR on the table, what is the value that INR is creating? So if as CSR professionals, as sustainability professionals, we do not understand that, as civil society organization, if we do not understand that, and if we do not walk that path, we will not have sustainable solutions for anything, let alone climate change.
Fair enough.
Thank you. There are no shortcuts. I just want to put that on the table.
There are none. Absolutely. And I'm going to build on that, and I'm going to move on to you, Ms. Devanshi. And building on this, can you, since you come from an advisory firm here as well, can you lay out a couple of models and give us an idea of what are the action plans and the steps that we, at this point in time, a CSR leader should devise in terms of maintaining this perfect sustainability, and also working in tandem with NGOs, their leadership, and everyone who's a part of this chain of events?
Right. So Tanya, when it comes to partnerships related to CSR, obviously it is with NGOs, and more specialized the area is for CSR, the more local the NGOs become. And the more local the NGOs become, it is even more difficult to expect, a professional approach to their work. Right, and CSR requires a lot of documentation, a lot of compliance, and a lot of reporting, a lot of auditing, and all of that. It comes into the picture when the corporates come in, want to get some social projects done on ground, which sometimes becomes a big challenge for the NGOs. Right, and that is why we ourselves conduct a lot of capacity building and benchmarking studies, standards, ratings for NGOs, and we try to assess and even help them come to a level where they can work in tandem with the corporate leadership. Right, and also the another challenge over here is sometimes, I'm not talking about the bigger companies, but the mid-sized companies that do CSR projects, the challenge becomes with every change of the board or a board member, sometimes the CSR cause changes, and obviously, and then the partnerships change, the partners change. So that is another challenge which makes it difficult for projects to become sustainable. Obviously, like I said, it's not for the bigger companies. Bigger corporates have very strong policies and governance, and sustainability SOPs in place. That becomes a challenge for the smaller companies and mid-sized companies that want to do CSR projects. So, when we advise our clients, to enable them to have good partnerships and long-lasting partnerships with their NGO partners, we try and get that balance where the corporates try and understand the social side of CSR, and at the same time, the NGOs on ground, they too, rather than getting hassled, take up that challenge and try to have a professional approach towards the projects.
Fair enough. Thank you very much for sharing those thoughts. And Mr. Roja, I want to move on to you. And you've heard all the panelists here in terms of how we can create this perfect synergy, and move on in terms of creating, because at the end of the day, it's creating a sustainable planet Earth. So, what do you agree? Do you disagree? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, definitely, Tanya. I agree with everybody out there, and just a small piece of information. Like currently, we have almost like 5,000 plus numbers, and on an average, we get somewhere somewhere between almost like more than 40,000 kgs of cow dung what we daily collect. Which what we do is we convert it into a organic manure, and we see we can use it and probably we can sell it and we can earn profit out of that. But which we are not doing it. And what we are doing it currently is we are distributing it in a area which is somewhere a vicinity somewhere around 40-50 kilometers of our Shree Nandishala, and we give them free of cost to promote organic farming. So that is number one. Number two is if we talk about India, see the current major issues what India is facing as of now is number one is basically environment, unemployment, right? And so what we can do is, and what we've been trying from our end is, and number three is into education. So as Shree Nandishala, though it is, from face it is like Nandishala, but we are also trying to help all these aspects as well. How now, as I've already given the example of the way we are distributing organic manure for the farmers. So that is how, we would like to promote the organic farming all across, so that these poor farmers can also get benefited out of that and they can earn profit. Number two, in terms of education, we have like almost 250 plus employees with us. So we have their children, we are taking care for their complete education around. So which is somewhere around 150 children, we have been taking care of. And that is completely with the family, they are staying with our premises and they are taking care of our cattle day and night. Number three is when we talk about the unemployment, I've already taken care of, the way we've been taking the 5,000 numbers, we need manpower. So we are just creating manpower in a sense that, everybody gets some good work to do. Plus with the upcoming expansion plan, as I mentioned, wherein, we are coming up with a cow sanctuary. So the number what we are looking is quite high. So it is almost like 100,000. So you can imagine the kind of, the manure we are going to collect, the kind of, employment we are going to generate, and the kind of the other CSR initiative which we are also doing in our terms. Now, like Devanshi has also raised a very valid point that it is, region based and all. I think as of now, Shree Nandishala is the biggest in entire Rajasthan, because the concept is completely different. You must have seen the various Gaushalas, but our concept is completely different. It is majorly what we, out of 5,000 number, we have 90% are bulls. So that is completely different. And we are coming up with a similar project, but in a major way. So we are also trying that, we give the major expansion plan, at least we cover a state or two there. So like Rajasthan and Haryana, we are just trying to do that. Number two is in terms of documentation. Yes, we as a NGO, we definitely, take care of the complete documentation we are a part of FIAPO as well. So in terms of like audit thing, which is a very, very normal procedure for us. We are filing our returns on time. We have a complete SOPs for every aspect. Mm-hmm. So right from the smaller to the every even right from the kind of fodder what we have procured till the complete infrastructure what we are developing. So we have each and everything documented, so that if anybody requires that, we are able to proceed as well.
That you've sort of built here. Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing those thoughts, Mr. Roja. We are very close to the cutoff time. So I want to take this 5 minutes and go back to the CSI leaders here and ask them for their closing remarks. So if we could all quickly give a 1 or 2 line closing remark and sort of sum up the whole conversation today for our audiences. I'll go to you, Mr. Rishi, first.
I think we have already discussed this in last 1 hour, I think, and I just try to build on that. And there lies an answer also. One question was raised in chat box also. I think we picked up a small piece of land, 45 acre from a community in the Ankleshwar belt. It was a wasteland. We converted that into a beautiful forest and we handed over to the community. This was a simple project, but what we also achieved was 36 species of bird coming in that area, apart from other small animals also. And also this becoming a hub for education for that particular district for environment. So again, coming back to creating small models and then how this can be replicated. And I think this is what Ms. Chakravarti also talked about. One. Two, we should go with our competencies. Like Kargil has a certain competency, UPL has a certain competency, MGB has a certain competency, Nandishala. So I think how we can create a synergy to create a broader impact, that's key, and which should be in sync with our Vedas learning of taking holistic view of the nature. So that's from my side.
Absolutely. And that was perfectly wrapped up as well. It has to, at the end of the day, it all comes back to our ancient learnings, which we have just for some reason forgotten. But I think all the answers lie in there. Thank you very much for that closing thought. I'll move on to Ms. Dipanvita. And can you, ma'am, please give us your closing thoughts?
Yeah, sure. I want to just take a step back from the corporations and think of us as individuals, right? How are we propagating these conversations at our homes? Is it a part of our dining table conversation? Do we have sustainability conversations at our dining table with our children, with our parents? Do we do that? Let's just reflect on this. I'm not sure. Okay. How are we using plastic at home? Are we really shunning single-use plastic at home? Are we teaching our kids about it? What do we do with the food waste? Do we use that to make organic compost at home and do a little kitchen garden at home? Are we doing all that?
Yeah, absolutely.
This is to everybody, right? See, I mean, I always like to say, Tanya, and this is to everybody who's listening and to my co-panelists, that life is the start. It starts with the microcosm and then goes to the macrocosm of it, right? It's always a zoom in, zoom out. So are we zooming in to ourselves, our own lives, and really looking at, are we being sustainable enough at our home space? Because that's a great start point. And I really like the kids nowadays, they have been great advocates. They would just come and tell their parents, oh, why did you leave that light switched on while you're not in the room? Right? They do that. A lot of kids do that nowadays, right? And that's a point for the parents to take a pause and say, oh yeah, that's a moment.
Yeah.
Are we recognizing those moments? I mean, obviously, you're talking about big goals, you're talking about partnerships, you're doing all of that. Yes, we'll keep doing that. But how are we internalizing it, right? How are we doing it at our own space, at our homes? I think that's something that all of us need to think about, and that has great power.
Absolutely.
Because I do some of these things at home, and I have seen how it changes. You involve the family, everybody does that. I think that there is power in that. So I'll close with that.
I think amazing closing remarks again, Ms. Dipanvita. And it has also made me, while you were talking, I was also reflecting on everything that you said. Do I do this? Do I have this conversation with my mother? Did I just buy a packet of milk with a plastic bag in it? And I think these are very little things. And now that you've pointed it out, and I think they're very basic things, but when somebody points it out and puts it out like that to you, I think it does make a difference. And I request all of you, everyone who's listening in, I think this self-reflection is very, very important. And these changes at the grassroots levels in your homes, in your communities, I think that's what are going to lead us to the bigger changes. Thank you very much for that thought, Ms. Dipanvita. Ms. Devanshi, ma'am, please, your closing thoughts.
I agreed with, all of the conversations that we had, and, being from the consulting space, I have seen both the corporate side of it and the NGO side of it. In my closing remarks, I would like to say what I said in my opening remarks, exactly the same thing, that my urge is, when corporates do their social projects on ground in whatever area they may be, whether it be education, health, whatever project, whatever area, please ensure to try and make it as sustainable as possible and as environment friendly as possible.
Absolutely. I think a very key takeaway there as well. Quickly, I'll move on to you, Mr. Roja, and you're the last person to close the panel. Your closing quick thoughts.
See, first of all, thank you, Tanya, for conducting this, because I got an opportunity to really interact with such a fine panelists, because there is a lot of learning which I have got from them, and thank you so much, everyone. My closing point is, now Nandishala very well. You have seen the video, but that's not all. What I would like you all to do is, if possible, I think it is not possible as of now, but later, whenever the things become normal, I request you all to visit Sri Nandishala. It's in Bikaner. It's a very nice place, and I really want you to come over, spend some time with us, and everything. I'll take care of it in terms of a stay and everything, because what you have seen is the virtual experience. Till the time you don't get an actual experience, I'm sure you must have seen that, but with the entire so big numbers around, and the kind of facilities what we are we are trying our level best to provide all the facilities to these kettles. So it is a completely different view. So it is a so nice, so soothing. In fact, if your team is there, must be working in and around Bikaner, if they can come over, they can also have a look. So everybody is really invited out there. Please do come and share your thoughts, and give us an opportunity to develop in case if we are lacking somewhere. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, and I will definitely make it a point to come, and I'm sure all my fellow panelists are equally intrigued as I am. So whenever we go back to whatever new normal that we will go back to, I think definitely a visit there is warranted actually after today's discussion. One quick last thought, Mr. Rishi has shared a very interesting paragraph on ancient Indian wisdom, which I would like to quickly read out as my closing remarks for this session. So thank you for sharing this. So Mr. Patania says that ancient Indian wisdom contains numerous references to worshipping and conserving nature through Vedas and Upanishads, Puranas, Sutras, and other sacred texts. Some of the most important ones are: earth can be seen as a manifestation of goddesses and must be treated with respect. It does. We call it the Mother Earth. The 5 elements, space, air, fire, water, and earth, are foundation of an interconnected web of life. That is true. We cannot survive without either one of them. Dharma, often translated as duty, can be reinterpreted to include our responsibility to care for earth. Very important. Actually, yeah, it should be. Simple living is a model for development of sustainable economies. Okay, very interesting. Our treatment of nature directly affects our karma. That I personally believe in. That is true. So thank you very much for sharing that. And I hope all of you had a good time discussing some very important thoughts today. And I hope you all had something to learn. I know I'm going to go back from this session with a lot of takeaways from all you learned people. And I hope my audience has also had a chance to learn, and keep flowing me. You've all got my email addresses. So keep putting your thoughts, and keep suggesting new panels, and keep suggesting new people that I could connect to, keep suggesting new topics that I could bring on for all you guys. Thank you for your support, and thank you to all my panelists as well for taking out time and enlightening me with so much knowledge. Thank you, and I hope you all have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Tanya. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you, sir.
I said, don't say me, sir.
Thank you, Rishi. Bye.